Hello everyone and welcome to the Edu Focus by Network of Education Policy Centers. My name is Iva Perković and today Edu Focus is on the topic of students' participation, and we will present you the manual that aims to support students' voice. The title of the manual is The Voice of Children, Creating Space and Starting to Change. And here today with me is Višnja Pavlović from the Forum for Freedom in Education and one of the authors of the manual. Welcome, Višnja.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Višnja, the manual is one of the outputs within the Start to Change project. Project that you are leading. Can you briefly introduce us with the project and tell us what is the change you are starting and how are you starting it?
Yes, thank you for that question. Yeah, starting the change, it's never easy, and I think that usually the people that will watch this video or the stakeholders that we are working with, we are all in the business of starting the change. But what the change that we are in this project dealing with is actually trying to promote student voice, but meaningful student voice, and hopefully later in this conversation I will be able to explain maybe a little bit more. And the active participation of students in the schools. Now, what's the purpose of this change that we are trying to achieve? Is actually building the resilience of young people. And we talk about resilience that relates to all those factors that can contribute to the healthy development of a young person, regardless of their starting position or some possible problems, into self-confident, satisfied, tolerant person, person that builds quality relationships, develops their abilities, and yeah, young people that are just actively and positively engaged in their community. Now we are implementing this project in Croatia, of course, and with other two partner organizations in North Macedonia and in Portugal, Macedonian Civic Education Center in Nova Plaza in Portugal. Also, we are supported by two other partner organizations, NEPTS, and Sirius, who are really important partners who are helping us to actually make a change on a policy level. Now, when I mentioned these three countries, Portugal, North Macedonia, and Croatia, in this project, actually, we are working directly with 15 schools. Through different activities, we are actually supporting these schools through whole school approach, to kind of promote, as I mentioned, this meaningful student voice through different activities that yeah, I would love to maybe explore further in these conversations. There are different activities, and at the moment we are in the with the beginning of the next year, we will be in the final third year, so a lot has been done already.
Thank you, Višnja, for this brief overview. And now we can focus on the manual itself. Originally, it actually wasn't envisioned in the undertaking of this project. So how did you decide to take this step?
Well, what we planned within the project design, that was, and this is important to mention, written prior, or maybe prior to pandemic year, sometimes in 2018 and 19. And what we planned was building the resilience of young people with the purpose of preventing radicalization and radicalized violent, let's say, behavior. So we did similar project just years before, and we actually introduced the output result, the handbook of that previous project, into this one with the plan to adapt it. And this existing manual was intended only for teachers who are, let's say, implementing different activities and topics, let's say, into their school, their classrooms with their students, but that this change somehow tackles violence, promotes values like diversity, solidarity, volunteering, etc. That manual actually tried to describe the context that we live in, like the global world that we live, the challenges that teachers deal with. It also had integral part of that manual was also student perspective, like on the world that they live in and the schools and communities that they are part of, and then provides a lot of good practice examples of different student projects in these topics of, let's say, promoting diversity, solidarity, preventing violence or social media, bullying, etc. Now in this project, in Start the Change project that we are talking about now, what happened was that the project started with 2020. Already in March, we had a global pandemic. And also to mention, in Croatia, we had earthquake that really resulted in a severe damage of some of the schools also that were already part of our project. So all this kind of, which is familiar to everyone, influenced children, influenced us adults, and of course influenced teachers and the schools. And much of the things that we talked about among project partner was actually that schools were really in the crisis, that they needed really support, how to transform the way that the teaching is going on to the online virtual world, but also how to support best their students in the challenges that they were struggling with due to pandemic and in Croatia due to earthquake. So much of the things that we talked about together with teachers was also mental health, importance of mental health, not only of students, but of teachers as well. And then when we looked back the existing manual, we realized that we need to really rewrite it, actually, and to try to, with the manual, answer to the existing needs of schools and teachers in terms of the crisis that we've been dealing with. And it was just not possible actually to ignore it if we were supposed to provide a resource or this manual is something that will help teachers or support teachers in overcoming the challenges that they were dealing with. And then when we've been looking at what would be the best content that would support teachers in this manual, we were talking about maybe two key topics. One is, let's say, we were mentioning personal and social competencies that young people need to develop to, let's say, build their resilience to this, even to all the different challenges that we are all experiencing now in the world, but also how they can develop their different civic competencies so that they also kind of contribute to the responsible democratic living in their communities, in the schools and in the world. So we struggled a little bit, and then we decided the key topic would be, as the key topic of the project is actually building student voice, but to, let's say, tackle the student voice from these two different perspectives. One is, what does it mean to have a voice as a person, and also what does it mean to have a voice as a citizen, as being a part of one society, community, and this helped us actually to further develop the content of the manual.
Thank you, Višnja. It is really inspiring, and it is always great to hear that you had the opportunity to make the content that is relevant for the current situation and for all the actors that it is actually for. I think that this approach also reflects in the manual itself, as it consists of different sections and combines different approaches. Some sections are more data focused, other have more emphasis on examples or real stories. There is also some practical guidance. It provides a lot of information in one place, and uses various approaches to this topic you mentioned earlier. How did you decide to take this format? Was it spontaneous decision, or did you actually plan from the start to make it so approachable for various people?
Yeah. Well, at this point, I need to mention my colleague Anna Munigrana, who is the lead author of the manual and also the lead expert in the Study Change project. And her perspective was, and we kind of all bought into it, was like this manual, though in a later phase we called it manual for adults, but of course that we were writing it for teachers. Were like that both Anna, Jelena, who is the second author, also my colleague, and myself are primarily trainers. We are doing constantly in our organization different training programs, particularly for teachers. And now when you have teachers as participants of trainings, it's quite a challenge, because I mean you need to teach the teachers. It's not always easy. And what we found in forum, let's say, and us as trainers, is that teachers, they need a mixture, or they appreciate, or they enjoy the mixture, and or they find it the most useful different combination of like giving them different theoretical models, research results, but to be mixed up with good practice examples, or they also provide in these trainings different good practice examples from their classrooms, etc. Also, as forum works on really different spectrum of activities with students, so we have a lot of, let's say, little stories from student perspectives, from different creative competition that we have, where we invite students to express their interest, or we implement different focus groups with students, and then we collect that data. So all this was kind of taken into consideration, and yeah, it is a mixture of all of that at the same time. But I think if you look at the manual, you will see it is almost written as someone is speaking on some training, like providing a different perspectives, like these authors say this about student voice, then you have interesting, I don't know, self-reflective exercise you can do, or you can do this with your students. And this is the model that really can help you. And there is also different, let's say, handouts that can be developed from the manual, etc. So we just kind of agreed that this manual could be more helpful in this kind of situation as different patchwork of different useful tips. So it's not really like that reader has to read it from beginning to the end, but it can be really like just look at the content, see the title that you are really interested, that you are like really feel urgent to know, and then to check that part and see if that is useful for you. So we thought just like it would be the really good way. The other way that maybe that is certainly is also good, but we thought maybe in these times the first option that I described is much better, is of course having the textbook with a lot of texts that will in details describe different theoretical models or different perspectives or different research results, etc. So we decided for this option that is, let's say, friendly, user-friendly, much more than some rich textbooks that really need require time and effort to go through, let's say like that.
Yes, I agree. It is really user-friendly, and I like this approach of combining different styles. But I have to also point out that it sends out some really important and relevant, especially now in the times of pandemic, messages about children's voice and their right to participation. So what would you say are the key messages in the manual that you wanted to share with the readers, and how they link to the wider idea of the project, and that is students' participation and building this resilience that you actually strive to accomplish?
Well, I must admit that this is really difficult question for me because we still authors, Anna, Jelena, and myself, when we discuss it or when we get back to the manual for some different reasons, that we find always some, even a little small sentence or part that somehow seems really, really relevant for the work we do. So I think that it's because it's not a big manual, I think that each section, each title, it's really kind of important. For me, what I find as some key message is actually in the first pages of the manual, which talks about understanding and seeing children and young people from two perspectives. One perspective is the usual one, maybe the common for us as teachers, trainers, but also as just adults, which is seeing children from, as we called it, developmental perspective, which means that we see young people as on the way to adulthood. So-called in literature, sometimes it's called like unfinished beings. So us as adults, or even as parents and as teachers, our job is somehow to guide them to get to this adulthood. But at the same time, it's important, the other perspective is also important, and I think this is why the manual is focused on children's voice, and the content of the children is much focused on that, which is related to the, of course, rights, Convention of Children's Rights, but not only that, it's also connected to seeing children as having worth on their own, not looking them as that they will become something, but that they already are, that they are actually key experts, the most important experts, and a source of knowledge of their own worlds. Because us as adults, we have some maybe knowledge, we have some experience, but which is in the past, so we have only our perception of what being a child is, or what being a young person is. So I think it's important to realize that even if we are if we think that we are more have more knowledge, or we are smarter, or we are more experienced, or more wiser, that still the children are the only one who know how is it to be them in this world. And for this, I think it's the crucial part is actually to have this notion and this understanding and this perception that children know the best how is it for them, and in order to find out, we need to support them to have the voice. And for me, this is the key message of let's say the first or crucial message of this manual, of this project. But of course, there are other segments of this manual that promote and actually lean on or continue into what I just mentioned, which is different tips, different approaches, styles, steps that we can take in strengthening the student voice or voice of children in the context of school, in the context of children being member and co-creators with us of our society. So there is lots of different aspects that are also important in this manual.
Thank you, Višnja. These are some really, I would say, inspiring and relevant messages. I would just like to ask you, I know it's perhaps a bit early, but did you get any feedback apart from the reviewers, from the people in practice on this manual, how they find this different perspective, and is it hard for them to shift from this role of adults being all-knowing and knowing what is best for children?
Well, on one, I would like to actually share from the level of teachers that we are working with in these projects. Of course, I will talk about the perspective of Croatian teachers because we work directly with them, and the content, let's say, that we presented in the manual was in part content of our teacher training program and curriculum. Of course, we have to say that 15 teachers that we had in our program, training program, are the ones who are already very enthusiastic, and they participate in this project because they are interested in active participation of students. But still, and I think that we all as an adults have to just admit that we are not really fully able to accept this notion of children having worth of their own. I think that this part of us and our role that we have usually as teachers, as parents, as responsible adults is so much stronger, and it overcomes so easily all of us. So of course that we talked about the teachers, how to really challenge ourselves, and even with the really legit limitations of the system, the teachers that are working within, which is different constraints of time, of resources, etc. That this view of listening to students, inviting them to express their own perspective, and really accepting that on the level that means really appreciation and taking this seriously and leading into serious discussion, and then integrating that in the school culture. It's the discussion that we constantly have still with teachers in these schools, and I think it's just ongoing process for all of them. And yeah, I think that with some of the student projects, short-term and long-term, these schools already are making some really interesting good practice examples. And I think what they also give feedback is that they themselves are slowly accepting and really changing their attitude, and at the same time they are aware that the change of course, school culture takes much longer times, and again, it gets to the point where, of course, you have school principals, school management, then you have different teachers. If we talk about secondary schools, vocational schools, so it's a real challenge to make that kind of change. But hopefully in the third year of the project, we will be able in discussions with all teachers and also policy decision makers that also accepted to be part of this project, how we can actually make this emphasis stronger in the school policies or even on the national level policies. And yeah, it will take time, but hopefully, yeah, somewhere somewhere it needs to start.
Yes, thank you for this explanation. It really points out how, from one perspective, it is on the individuals, but there is also a much bigger picture involving also school level, local level, policy level. But I like this positive, let's say, and optimistic perspective that still individuals can make a difference and start the change. My final question for our conversation today for you is, what do you say, who should be reading this manual and why?
Well, I think that one of the manual reviewers was Lana Jurko from NETS, from your organization, who really gave this great sentence and said, well, this manual is not only for teachers, it's for parents, for grandparents, for uncles, for aunts, for anyone who have in their vicinity children or young people. So maybe that's the answer for that, and I would agree with that, because I think, of course, maybe not everyone will find useful everything, because some parts are really intended for classroom or school contexts. But at the same time, I think one of really interesting things is the voice of children in the manual as well. The stories that we shared in the manual that comes from them. It's really interesting to see from their perspective, how do they see the ideal school, or where in what ways or in which situations they really feel heard, or what they find the most important for them in the school. I think these voices of children is really always precious, and can be very informative for us adults. Another thing that I also find interesting is in this manual that might be for some people a discovery, is also understanding that how we view children, how we view childhood is socially constructed. So there is this nice segment that presents how the children and childhood was viewed through history. So we learn somehow that how we see children now is different how we saw children in the past, and yeah, how we will see children in now and in the future. It's probably the most crucial for the future of us, of our worlds, of our communities, and that is to see children as co-creators with us. If we see them and view them with equal dignity, as Jasper you would say, with us, and co-create together the education, or just the culture in the school, or just whatever community they are part of, that then we really have a good chance for them to be to grow up as really individuals who are aware of their voice, who are aware of their attitudes, who know what the world they would like to live in, and what they want to build for themselves that is beneficial for themselves personally, but for the society that they are part of. So yeah.
Great. Thank you very much, Višnja, for sharing this inspiring and really relevant and great example of supporting students' voice and participation with our audience. We had the opportunity to hear very important messages that manual tries to send out. And as it is tailored by different approaches to the topic, everyone can relate in some way and help in supporting the students' voice and empowering the voices of children. So I invite everyone to check out the manual. The manual is available on the official Start the Change project website, so please take a look. Thank you very much, Višnja, once again, and farewell until the next Edu Focus. Bye.